Is it, what kind of obnoxiously proud person would say, yes, ask me anything? Anyway, here we go. All right. By the way, for those I haven't met, my name is Kalakantha Das, and visiting from Florida. And we're going to start with a question: how to be steady? How to be steady? The step by steady, we're talking about being consistent in our spiritual practices. And that, of course, assumes that we have spiritual practices, which we may or may not have. But steadiness is the quality of the sattva gun, or the mode of goodness. That one is consistent in one's pursuits, whatever they may be. The Bhagavad Gita describes these three modes of nature: passion, goodness, and ignorance, that affect everybody and influence our decisions. It's like in art, there's red, yellow, and blue that combine to form all the other colors. So our natures, our decisions, our feelings, our behavior is all dictated by these three modes, or influenced by them. And if we are pursuing spiritual life, the influence is less. If we're not pursuing spiritual life, then we're pretty much operating under their control all the time. So the mode of passion makes us feel very driven and ambitious and overwork and over-endeavor and be stressed and erratic for that reason. Like sometimes we'd be really productive and sometimes we'd be really lamenting. And these are unsteady qualities from passion. In ignorance, we're unsteady because we just don't have any motivation. And we spend a lot of time regretting things that we said or did, and a lot of times thinking about them. So that is the mode of ignorance, looking backwards. My friend made this beautiful sculpture called Hankering and Lamenting. His name's Adi Dev. He's a great sculptor. So it shows this like running man. The body is like totally running fast, 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 but the head is looking that way. So it's hankering and lamenting. So steadiness means, if hankering is looking in the past, looking in the future, and lamenting is looking in the past, what do you think the mode of goodness does? Where does that take us? Passion is looking ahead, ignorance is looking backwards. Where are we in the mode of? In the present, right, exactly. So that is the way to be steady. No matter where the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, to bring it back into the present and do the best we can with what's in front of us. That's one side of it. The other symptom of the mode of goodness is to have a regular habit of when we rest, when we rise, when we eat, when we bathe, when we work. The word in the Bhagavad Gita is yukta. Yukta hara viharascha. Yeah. Yukta hara means eating regularly. Vihara means playing and recreation. So eating, sleeping, work, and recreation, being steady or being regular in these things will help us to keep the mind calm from looking forwards or backwards, just focused on the present. And when we're focused on the present, we do our best, isn't it? When we're paying attention to what we're doing, then we excel. Whatever we're capable of, it comes out much better because we're focused. All right? Does that answer that question?
I asked it.
What?
I asked it.
Oh, you asked it. Oh, okay.
So you can choose Peru, and then making your tui, I can announce the question.
Okay.
Reason behind being vegetarian.
Yeah, this is related to the mode of goodness. We don't need to eat animals in order to have a healthy diet. It's just a matter of what our culture and upbringing has dictated us and taught us. If we put a bowl of fruit, like some grapes, and then a chunk of meat in front of a catered for vegetarian foods, because, see, what is meat but pre-digested vegetables? Right? So animals that are actually carnivorous have very short digestive systems because it's already been digested once. But human beings have a very long digestive system, which again is indicative of a system that is meant to break down complex, undigested vegetable matter. And so it's very natural to eat meat just on the health-ish considerations. What to speak of the karmic considerations, going a little deeper. What is the result of taking the life of somebody just for our own gratification? We hurt somebody terribly. Animals don't want to die. They're not volunteering. They're treated horribly. They're tortured, and then they're slaughtered, and then they're sold. I mean, it's completely inhuman when you think about it, particularly because we don't need it. So these are some of the reasons materially behind a vegetarian diet. What is a spiritual reason for a vegetarian diet? Because Krishna's a vegetarian. If Krishna wanted meat, we'd give him meat 3 times a day. Right? But he's patram pushpam phalam toya. Yes, you give me fruit, give me a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, even some humble thing any time of year, and I'll accept that. Yeah. Okay. And then if we give Krishna what he wants, then Krishna gives us what we want, which is love for him. And that, in this way, there's a beautiful relationship, even when we're eating. We give Krishna what he wants, and then we feel joy because he's satisfied. Okay?
Can I ask a question on that?
You have to put it in the tray. No, go ahead quickly.
Just this afternoon, we had a devotee who has a farm, and she was visiting, and she was mentioning that even consuming dairy, how cows are tortured. So what is that you would like to say on this? Like, people are consuming dairy, and that is also torturing cows?
They're consuming dairy? Okay. Well, yes, so cows are abused horribly in our society. And they're abused for milk, and then they're slaughtered. So should we take the milk from these cows that are being mistreated, or should we just say, no, I won't do anything to support that industry? People feel both ways. One of the devotees who runs the cow protection program at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London has a philosophical view on it. He said, if I were a cow and I was incarcerated and being abused and in a helpless condition, and I had a chance that my milk might be offered to Krishna, I would certainly want my milk to be offered to Krishna. So from that point of view, if devotees are offering dairy products, that is beneficial for the cows. Okay? Again, some people don't like milk, but to say it's inherently abusive to cows to support the dairy industry is not what Srila Prabhupada taught us. He said it's Kali Yuga, it's hard to get pure food, it's hard to get pure milk, and the cows are being abused without a doubt. At the same time, to offer milk to Krishna is important. All the milk sweets that we prepare, all the various dishes that we offer to Krishna, to attract people to Krishna consciousness, it's very helpful, particularly if people are accustomed to eating meat. Okay? All right.
I believe everything happens for a reason, but still couldn't understand why people are exposed to a negative state and sinful life. We have path of spiritual positivity. Why do cruelties exist? Why God has embedded negative happenings in our lives?
Why has God embedded negative happenings in our life? Well, we could ask, why is there a police force in the government? Okay, the government prepares libraries, colleges, hospitals, beneficial institutions to help the people. And they also prepare police forces and prisons. Why is it? Because some people in society are not going to live by the rules, and they're going to do things that will be harmful to others. Therefore, they have to be separated. So in the same way, in the spiritual world, everything is focused on pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the freedom is there to do that or not. And for those who choose not to cooperate, not to abide by the rules, they go to the material side of creation, where we can enact our lives as if we were the center of everything. And so for such uncooperative people in society, there needs to be some discipline. In America, they call the jail system the Departments of Corrections. Is that what do they call it in Canada? Have anything like that? I'm just curious. If they, it's good to know none of you have ever been experienced. But you see the euphemism there, the Department of Corrections. The purpose of the jail is correction. It's not meant to punish, it's meant to correct. So in the same way, the life in the material world is meant to correct our
It's called the correction service.
there it is. Okay. Right. So it's meant to improve the quality of the society. It's meant both to protect those who are law-abiding, but in addition to, what is the word, rectify, to rehabilitate. Yeah. So why are there sufferings in this world? Because this is the rehabilitation department. This is the Department of Corrections. This is correction services here in the material world for everybody. Even the people who seem to be, really having it together and making money and being famous and so forth, it's the same thing. They can't keep it, So they're getting pleasures and then they're losing them. They're getting possessions and they're losing them. They're having loved ones and then they're losing them. So even the successes in the Department of Corrections are losses. Therefore, in the Gita, Krishna speaks this beautiful verse: Yehi samsparshaja boga dukkha yonaya evate advanta dvanta konteya na teshu ramate buddha. That means that intelligent persons do not take pleasure in the sources of misery that arise from contact with the senses. Why? Because these pleasures have a beginning and an end. And so intelligent people don't indulge in them because they're always going to come and go, and there'll be joy and then there'll be sorrow. So the miseries of this world are baked in. Just like in the Department of Corrections, everybody has to stay in a small cell and they're not free to come and go. They can only go outside at this time. They can only eat at that time. There's all kinds of restrictions. So it's not meant to be a place for enjoyment. So the mentality behind this question is really that, and I'm not blaming the person who wrote it. I'm sure they don't want to admit who it is. But it's something we all as human beings want. Why can't I have it both ways? Can I believe in God and at the same time have my material, ordinary life very nicely? See? We want it both ways. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't, then we have to make up our mind which is more important. Am I going to try to fix my material situation, or am I going to just tolerate the injustices and the pains and the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune in this world? Nobody is exempt from it. It's the poet called the Vale of Tears, the Vale of Tears. Everyone has to walk through this valley of tears, and sometimes there'll be joy and sometimes there'll be sorrow. The spiritually minded person expects that and persists, no matter which side of the coin is up at the moment. Okay. All right. Any follow-up on that? Okay. Yes, Prabhu?
Prabhu said that, in prison we have to eat at a certain time, live in a certain condition, and then we follow all these restrictions and rules.
Sounds like the ashram.
What is the difference
between this and the ashram? There's the door. Yes, we voluntarily take restrictions. See, this is the quality. This is the quality. This is the quality of a spiritually mature person, voluntarily accepting restrictions. And a spiritually immature person has them imposed, right? Yeah. We voluntarily accept restrictions. Why? Because it helps us be steady. It helps us be self-controlled. It helps us be joyful. If we weren't getting joy from these restrictions, there would be no reason to do them. My beloved late father had a very hard time when I took up spiritual life full time. It was not something he had envisioned for me. And he thought it was just a series of imposed rules that I had to follow. And he said, "What do you do? Sit there and meditate on your navel all day?" And then he said, "Can you do this? Are you allowed to do this? Are you allowed to do that?" So basically, Dad, I can do whatever I like. I'm just enjoying this practice. He was in the army. So I'd say, in the army, you could just do this or do that, whatever you like. No, he accepted a series of disciplines for a higher purpose. So, we voluntarily cede some freedoms, so-called freedoms, for a higher purpose. And this is why Krishna calls them in the Gita the regulative principles of freedom. Right? Okay. All right, next.
If I don't have material motivation to pursue career outside, can I devote my life to the movement being a grihastha?
Yes, but it means living a renounced grihastha life. Also, in other words, this is as our organization is growing, we're recognizing more and more that people have a variety of natures. Devotees have a variety of natures. Some are inclined towards business. Some are inclined towards study, teaching. Some are inclined towards renunciation, and all of these are welcome. There's many, many ways to serve Krishna. The whole goal is to find out our particular way of serving Krishna in a position in which we can be steady and happy and fulfilled. And so one size does not fit all. So the typical religious organization, it will have one religious leader and then a group of secular followers. By secular, I mean they have ordinary occupations, but they take leadership, they take guidance from the religious leader. So this is what we would call religious professionals in our terminology. We call them Brahmins in the Vedic terminology. The Vedic terminology, or the Vedic society, the Brahmins would be very gratefully supported by the householders and the other people in society, because the value of spiritual leadership is appreciated. In our society, that's not quite how it works. It works in a slightly more materialistic way, in that there are professionals who are hired by or supported by a congregation to be exemplary spiritual leaders and teachers. So could grihastas do that in ISKCON? Yes. It is not as well established as it is in most churches. And there are churches in which there are no paid professional religious leaders, that they depend on volunteers. And those volunteers come from people who are already well established financially and don't need any financial support. So if you are a devotee and you want to just be a teacher and have a Brahminical life, and you maybe have a partner, a spouse who shares those values, more and more it's becoming clear, and devotees and temples are recognizing the value of providing for such spiritually oriented people as leaders. So I have had a career like that, and it is my great fortune to have a spouse who is also Brahminically inclined, and so she was willing to live on fumes, and we raised our children very simple way, but we always had enough. But Krishna provided us what we needed. We didn't have enough to ever save money, but we had enough to meet our expenses. And so I've lived that life, and it's a nice life. It just, you have to be prepared to be economically very modest. But the beauty of it, as they say, the salary is lousy, but the fringe benefits are out of this world. Yeah, it's a very fulfilling life, if that's your inclination. I'd just like to add, in the early days of our Sangha, ISKCON, everybody was going to be a preacher or sannyasi, you know, and then it turned out that that really wasn't the nature. And so people felt like failures because they weren't prepared. But more and more, I see people now can earn a modest living being spiritual leaders in devotional communities. And it's a nice life. All right, does that answer that question? Any other follow-up on that? Okay.
If I chose ashram life and brahmachari until I leave my body, would ISKCON take care of me?
No. Next question. No, this is an interesting dilemma, and you see it here in Toronto. You see some of these aged elderly brahmacharis who are still living in the ashram and economically very weak. The Catholic Church has wrestled with this, you know, because they have nuns and priests who are single and give their lives to the church, right? This is the meaning. So for many years, they would have retirement homes for these elderly nuns and priests. And then these retirement homes would scramble trying to raise money to take care of their charges. And so that system was not working very well. So as a result, they changed the system and they just started paying salaries to the nuns and priests and say, you take care of yourself in retirement. So it's reasonable, if one is going to be a renunciant, to have some kind of retirement plan built in and say, okay, so I'll work full time for the temple, for the community. I need to put aside so many dollars per month so that when I'm no longer able to work, I can take care of myself. It's good to pay taxes. It's good to pay taxes because then you can receive social benefits. At least this is how it works in America. Is that Canadian system like that also? I think it's a little bit more liberal. Whether you've paid into the system or not, the government will provide you some minimal support at least. Yeah, Canada is a much more civilized country. But one should not neglect. See, one of the qualities of Kali Yuga is to be over-dependent on another's mercy. Do you remember reading this in Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto? So if we say, well, I'm just going to work and for ISKCON, and ISKCON will take care of me, this is not. ISKCON is an educational organization. It's not a social organization. Just like if you go to college and say, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to work hard, and then, okay, now I'm graduated, now continue to take care of me, college. You know, it isn't rational. That's not the purpose. The purpose of ISKCON is to provide the spiritual education that people need in order to practice bhakti their whole lives. And so we take that education gratefully and then we apply it in our lives. Ideally, we would support ISKCON as householders. And if we want to just remain working in the institution, then we should make some plans to take care of ourselves one way or another. Okay, that's just practical advice. Otherwise, what happens is people become disappointed. I've given so much and you can't take care of me. And then people feel bitter. But there was never a contract. There was never an agreement, a sort of implied contract, which is not wise. There can be very different understandings. And temples may be economically strong sometimes, and they may be economically weak. And so, you don't want to be dependent on that kind of uncertainty. India, ISKCON they have more resources, and they're dealing with these things in nice ways, trying to make sure that there are facilities for elderly devotees who have given their lives for the cause of spreading Krishna consciousness, even for their parents, because there's so much of a built-in ethic in India that the sons particularly should take care of their parents. So in Kanpur, I was just visiting Kanpur temple. They have built an adjacent building for the parents of the brahmacharis who are dependent, so they can actually live there, and their sons can continue serving as brahmacharis full time. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah, this is inevitably a growing problem because it is incumbent on us all to grow older and become less and less capable of supporting ourselves. So it is best for devotees in ISKCON to prepare, to have some kind of a plan. And again, if that requires taking some modest income and saving it for the future, that's very reasonable and responsible. Okay. Any follow-up on that, or okay?
I'm from Africa,
Ah.
and I mean, I'm from a Muslim country.
Uh-huh.
But what you are saying about the family, it's kind of the same way.
Which country are you from?
So I'm biracial. I'm from Algeria and from Spain. But in Algeria, I've been living there, and at least before it was working like that.
Mm.
The same.
So there's expectations to take care of the family, or
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of it's a social, or you could say almost Darwinian inclination that people will group together for their protection, right? So the family is very important because that's how we survive. We stay with our family and we help each other, and then we can survive. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and so the family stays together. So we want to rise above that kind of, kind of survivalist mentality, and have a more broad vision. The family is there, the obligations of the family are there, but at the same time, it's not our permanent shelter. And the devotee community is like a family. But again, we don't want to become over-dependent on the mercy of the family. We get our spiritual upliftment, we get our social fulfillment from the devotees, but we don't want to say, okay, now please take care of all of my needs. Right? Okay, if we're giving full-time service, we have a reasonable position to say, I can do this service if you can provide me these things that I need, including being able to plan for my future retirement. That would be my advice after living the life I've lived. 10 years as a brahmachari, and then 30 years as a poor grihasta, and then the last 10 years somehow Krishna sent me enough money to take care of my, which gives me a lot of faith in Krishna, by the way. So, all right, next question. Oh, yes, follow up. Okay, how much do you want?
I'm just wondering, personally, I'm from a medical field, and till the time I have saffron, I'm here, but later I'll be going and working. I can see there are a lot of Prabhupada disciples who are here, and they are served a lot. Is there a need for us also to be prepared? In some cases, obviously people are spending a lot of time who have already given their life to the moment, and we want old age homes for them or something. We don't want them to go away, or something where we can have come and have darshans and stuff.
Right. This is, we've come a long way since the early days of the movement. Everyone was just scrambling to try to buy this property, and raise the money to buy a property like this. And there was no thought to the future. That was just, let's get this done. And of course, when we're young, in general, we don't worry so much about the future. That old adage, how nobody can be happy in this world. When you're young, you have time and you have energy, but no money, right? And when you're middle-aged, you have money and you have energy, but you have no time. And then when you're old, you have time and you have money, but you have no energy. Right? So always some deficiency. So the devotees were very, very young who bought this property. I mean, probably no one was 30 even. Can you imagine 20-somethings out there on the street raising money all year round, cold and heat, collecting money to purchase this property? There was no congregation to speak of, and it was a very joyful sacrifice. So then they all got married, and realized that ISKCON was not going to be their occupation. They had to go outside and earn, and then these were the necessary sacrifices to start, but now we're a little more experienced. So we should recognize, first of all, most people are going to be grihastas. Very few people will be lifelong renunciates. So but you need to be prepared for that. Okay. So am I answering your question all right?
I'm still kind of confused because I was personally going to think like in senior citizen care or something like that. That was my field, and I'll be continuing later.
So right. So what I'm saying is, because we weren't prepared, we have these devotees who are in somewhat of a compromised position. Ideally, they would not be staying in the temple; they would have their own facility. Yeah, but we don't have it, so we weren't prepared. So now we'll be more prepared going forward, and a lot of that means, don't just expect you're going to just give all your time and then ISKCON's going to always take care of you. It's not a good formula. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next. Oh, did you have some other? Oh, yes.
I had we were talking about work and career planning, and I had a question. I get very disheartened when I look at maybe the world around me, and it prevents me from taking steps. I'm on the cusp of graduating school and to look for a job, but just kind of seeing how everything is outside, it's like I feel scared, I feel disheartened. And I've noticed that this isn't just limited to this, but whenever I feel afraid of something, I become disheartened. Whether it may be like a hard school assignment or something else, I get disheartened very quickly, and I wanted to know what can I do to change this?
Well, the acronym FEAR, what does that stand for? Remember, Vishaka?
I forgot.
Oh, what is the use of trying to teach you anything? I'm just teasing. Do you remember? Okay. FEAR stands for false expectations appearing real.
This is this morning.
Yeah, it's been a long time. False expectations appearing real. So this is the mode of passion, when we're feeling afraid of something that has not actually happened, but what it might happen. So what'll happen if this happens? It's one thing to be prepared. It's another thing to be afraid. Okay. So the American President Roosevelt said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." So when we're afraid of something, we should recognize this is a mode of passion affecting us. Okay? And so it's just another illusion. What is actually happening? What do I actually need to do? I have an assignment. I'm afraid of it. No, but I have to do the assignment. I have a test. I'm afraid of it. No, I have to just do the test. So we don't allow ourselves to live in a state of fear. What is the antithesis of fear? It's confidence, it's joy, and that comes from being in the mode of goodness and recognizing that we're going to do our best. We're going to try a variety of things in our lives. We may be very good at some things, maybe not be very good at other things. That's okay. As part of student life is the time to learn and to experience and to try different things. So if we fail at something, that doesn't mean we're bad people or we're failures. It just means we have there's another kind of service Krishna wants us to do. It's a big transition, though, going from the bubble of school into the dog-eat-dog world of work, right? Yeah. And so it's good to evaluate your nature and your priorities and what do you like to do? What is it that you love to do so much that when you do it, time just disappears? Try to find out what that is. And then if you do what you love, the money will follow. Do what you love and the money will follow. If you just follow the money, then you may never get to do what you love. Next.
Want to bring positiveness, but cannot manage work and spiritual life. Life is getting depressed with addition of wrong things to cope up with stress. Whenever I try to feel and bring myself more closer to Krishna, it feels that he is going far from me.
Read that last sentence again, please.
Whenever I try to feel and bring myself more close to Krishna, It feels that he is going far from me.
Okay, so this the general tenor of this question is that negativity. What can I do to bring more positiveness and find the right balance between my work life and my spiritual life? So in this case, because everyone here is pursuing spiritual life, we have to decide what is our priority in spiritual life. That is, in other words, how important is spiritual life in our hierarchy of priorities? The Gita and the Parampara all teach us, make this the first and foremost part of your life. And then everything else can fit in around it. Okay? And that's the challenge of like Bhagavad Gita. Never does Krishna tell Arjuna, give up your material responsibilities. He says, spiritualize them. So that's the answer to the question, that we make our work into part of our service for Krishna. And that's what the Gita teaches us. That's the hard part. And so life is getting depressed with addition of wrong things to cope with stress. Yeah, so if we don't feel our work is an offering to Krishna, then we will naturally go outside of spiritual life to find some kind of joy, because we are pleasure-seeking entities. Anandamaya Vyasa. If we don't know the art of finding pleasure in spiritual life, we'll look for pleasure in other self-destructive ways, and that is depressing. It's depressing because we know we're going nowhere. You know, if we indulge in some kind of sense gratification, then we know it's not good for us. We know it doesn't make us feel good, but we do it because we're so desperate for some kind of joy. And this is a quality of the beginning stages of spiritual life. As we advance more, we learn more and more how to get our pleasure from spiritual practices and from just being steady in our offering to Krishna, whether that's our work, our study, our school, whatever our duty is. If we have a good spiritual foundation, especially in the morning, then we can offer that day to Krishna, even if we're doing some simple job, or even if we're doing something seemingly unrelated. The only thing we can't do for Krishna is to be a butcher. You really can't be a butcher for Krishna. That's in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, just about any vocation can be turned into an offering for Krishna. And it's much easier to recognize I'm doing work for Krishna when you're living in the temple and you're preaching and you're doing deity seva or what have you. Then it's very easy. But it is a false dichotomy to say the only way I can do spiritual activity is if I'm living in the temple. That's not true. That's a misunderstanding of the Bhagavad Gita. So Abhinav, you have this challenge now to find out what it is that Krishna wants you to do. We need to go forward bravely and with trust in Krishna. Krishna is not oblivious to our situation. He puts us in these challenging situations. When you go through this, then you gain a lot of confidence that you would not have otherwise gained. Okay, I can compete in this world. I can be as good as the next man. I can do my service. I can do something that I love to do and do it for Krishna. And if I have to just earn money doing something for a while, that's Krishna's arrangement, then I'll do that for Krishna. And watch for opportunities, watch for messages. It's my hope that some of you who really love teaching and practicing bhakti could be engaged and employed full-time in the future as religious professionals. Things that we could not do in the past, but we're coming to the point now more and more of being able to do that. If you like Krishna consciousness, then there might be some opportunities like that. And at the same time, if you have other aptitudes and inclinations, you can still do that for Krishna. So this positive, negative is all kind of an illusion. It's the influence of the modes of nature. It's an indication that we haven't really understood the philosophy deeply enough quite yet. Because if we understand the philosophy deeply, what is there to lament about? You know? And we recognize lamentation is just like spinning my wheels. I'm not doing anything. Oh, poor me. Yeah. Yeah. Why did this happen? Why did I do that? And then meanwhile, the present is just kind of evaporating right before our eyes, and we're accomplishing nothing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, forget the past that's dead and sleeps, and never the future fear at all. But live in times that are with you, and progress you will call. Okay, that's positive. Okay, next.
How to overcome negativity?
Oh, okay. I'm sensing a theme here. Yeah, negativity means that that we are not putting our trust in Krishna. In the 9th chapter of Gita, Krishna says, Ashradhanana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot escape birth and death, but have to come back and continue in another life. So Shraddha is in two levels. There's preliminary faith and then firm faith. So preliminary faith is that which inspires us to take up spiritual life in the first place. That's called Adao Shraddha. Okay, God exists and I want to connect with God. That's Adao Shraddha, even if we don't know much about it. After associating with devotees and practicing sadhana and then going through purification, then we come to the point of Nishta, which is firm faith. And firm faith is beyond this realm of negativity. Until then, we will have these kind of ups and downs. So how do we deal with negativity? We tolerate it. My mind is objecting. Hey, wait a minute. I used to be in charge here, and now you're chanting all the time. What's going on? Every time we chant, we're just challenging the mind. Nope. You stay over here. I'm doing something right now in this moment for Krishna. Whether you like it or not, I'm doing it. So the mind will project negativity and desires and all kinds of other things to try to divert us. Therefore, we have no choice but to tolerate. There is no other medicine besides tolerating it. We tolerate the negativity of the mind, and then we'll become positive. We do not get rid of the negativity by by focusing on it. We can, however, offset it by disciplining our minds in positive ways, like counting our blessings. Okay, I have my youth, I have my education, I have this friend, I have this knowledge. Whatever assets we have, we keep focusing on those things. Then we can offer them to Krishna. Not to be proud, but just to be positive. Actually, we're very fortunate. Very fortunate. Counting our blessings will help offset the negativity that's being produced by our rebellious minds. Okay?
I have a desire to be brahmachari and hopefully sannyasi one day, if Krishna allows. Am I wrong for having a desire as a teenager?
No, it's good to recognize, though, that this is a time of life for this kind of discipline and student pursuit. Brahmachari means student. Why is everybody looking at Amalahari now?
I never wrote any of those letters.
It's from someone else.
Okay.
Congregation.
Okay, yes, so just speaking in broad terms, from age, as early as possible up to age 25, 26, this is student life. And it's a great time to be brahmachari, brahmacharini, and not have any relationships and not complicate your life and just focus on spiritual growth and study. Then for most people around that time, then it's time to enter into grihastha life and economic development and professional career of some sort. However, some people can say honestly and comfortably, no, I could live like this for the rest of my life as a single person, men and women. Most minority, for sure, but some will, and that's also a legitimate choice. the most important thing to understand is it's not the only way to be Krishna conscious. And that's where we went wrong, 50 years ago. So you can learn from our mistakes and be realistic. Most people will naturally be grihastas. And grihastas are the engine of society. The grihastas support the other three ashrams. So sometimes people who are naturally renounced can be sannyasis or lifelong single ladies. And that's welcome and it's a legitimate option. However, it's not likely in most cases. It's not likely going to be something with which one will be 100% comfortable. So the important thing is, as a community, we respect either decision. And we don't feel like this one is right, this one is wrong. Each one has their own individual way of serving Krishna, each individual. Okay.
How can we be free from the anxiety about constantly imagining the worst possible scenario of the future?
They're very creative. Gee, let's think about what could go wrong.
I think because it's Friday, maybe if it was Monday, we stop.
Yes. At the end of the week, everybody's burned out. Of course, these questions were written earlier. Well, I have noticed, and forgive me if this seems sexist, but I have noticed that women have a stronger ability to envision negativity than men. To envision something terrible happening. Am I right? Is it just my wife? Is it? I don't know. In any case, it's unwise to dwell on negative things. If we dwell on negative things, we'll experience negative things. Much wiser to dwell on positive things, and to be full of hope, to be pursuing a vision. Happiness is defined as the progressive realization of worthwhile goals. Progressive realization of a worthwhile goal. That's what makes us happy. So we have something that we're aspiring for, that we're pursuing, and we expect Krishna's mercy. We expect that Krishna is going to help us. Then we are enthused, we feel hopeful, and we like to get up in the morning and we have purpose. So if we are envisioning negative things, that means the mind is in control and we have failed to control it. It means our mind is imposing essentially things that will inspire us to give up spiritual life. Oh, well, like Arjuna even asks that question in chapter 6, right? He's engaging this very same thing. What happens if I take up spiritual life but I don't succeed? Then what is my position? Am I like a cloud that's just floating around, disconnected? And Krishna says, no, one who does good is never overcome by evil. So in the same way, if we're pursuing spiritual life, that's already an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to be a yogi in Kali Yuga who can follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 8 rounds. That's actually astonishing, what to speak of 16 rounds, right? It's an incredible investment of energy and time. My wife and I once calculated that if we had spent the amount of time we have spent chanting japa, just working at a minimum wage job, we would have earned about $300,000 or $400 million, no, $300,000 or $400,000 over the course of our lives. And at the same time, if we had not followed the regulative principles, we would have spent $300,000 or $400,000. So economically, it's a break even. So by following the principles and chanting Hare Krishna, we've had such a happy life. So there's countless reasons to be negative. It takes no intelligence to worry about them, but it does take intelligence to think, oh, okay, if I pursue this, these good things could happen. And that gives us the strength to go through negative times or negative experiences or difficult tests, because we're going somewhere, we have a purpose. Okay.
What should be the correct mood while apologizing for unintentional offenses?
Very good. Yes. So 3 R's. First is to recognize the offense. If we've done something wrong to somebody, we have to go to them and say, I recognize I have offended you. And then second R is remorse. I really feel bad that I have caused you this problem. And then the third R is rectification. So what can I do to make it right? Recognition, remorse, and rectification. When we recognize, we may or may not get the response we wanted. When we apologize, essentially, we may not get the response. People may not forgive us. They may continue to resent. And that's okay. There's nothing we can do about that. We have done what we could do. So if we give a heartfelt apology and offer to make it right, there's nothing more we can do. So at that point, an important principle comes into play. We cannot let other people dictate. How they feel about us should not dictate about how we feel about ourselves. It is inevitable that we'll make offenses, we'll make mistakes, we'll hurt people that we did not intend to hurt. So if we apologize properly, we've done what we can do. And again, these 3 steps: recognition, remorse, and rectification. We do that, we offer, they may take it, they may not, that's their problem. We have done what we can do. Okay. What hurts us if we make an offense, but we're afraid how the other person will respond, so we don't say anything. Then we suffer the results of the offense. So if we address it straightforwardly, recognizing we don't have the power to change this person's mind, we can do what we can do and then leave it. All right? Next.
How can one reconcile detachment from worldly relationships, such as the love of devoted parents gifted by Krishna, with principle of loving and connecting with Krishna?
Mm-hmm. Yes, how can we dovetail the love we feel for our loved ones, our family, with loving Krishna? So, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of watering the root of the tree. Try to water all the branches and leaves individually, the tree will suffer. But if we give the same water to the root, then all the parts will be nourished. So if we love Krishna, there's plenty of love to go around for our family members. But if we give love to our family members first and foremost, then Krishna will be on the side. And our loved ones will become Atma Sanyeshus. They're fallible soldiers who cannot really give us shelter. They can't give us shelter in this world and at the time of death especially. So when we direct our love for Krishna, it's not a zero-sum game, as you say. I'm giving all my love to Krishna, so I have none to give to my family. Sorry, you're out of luck. It's just the opposite, actually. If we love Krishna, then we'll be able to see people in relation to Krishna and love them even more. If we love them just based on our bodily relationship, what is that love? It's more of a convenience. It's more of a I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back deal, right? But if we love them because they are beloved parts and parcels of Krishna whom we love, then that love is much deeper and more comprehensive. And we can really appreciate them in a much broader sense. Is that all right?
How to improve our behavior towards others?
By the service mood. Yes. If we look at others as representatives of Krishna, Krishna has sent this person in my life. Krishna has sent this jerk in my life. How can I serve this person? How can I serve this person? That is, if we are in this mood of service, then we're protected. If we're in the mood of enjoying, or if we're in the mood of indulging our anger or exploiting this person or lording it over them, then is that really service? It's not. Then we're trying to enjoy rather than contribute to this person's well-being. We're trying to exploit. Gopi Bhartapada Kamalayor Dasa Das Anudas. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said himself, I am the servant of Krishna's servant. Many, many times removed. One who is in a serving mood will really be appreciated wherever they go, not whenever they go. Okay? You understand? We want to be the kind of person who brings a smile wherever we go, not whenever we go. When we really want to help people, that comes across. When we really care about the other person's welfare more than our own, it's beautiful because then we go beyond our own ego and our own selfish perception of things, and that's liberation. We get outside of our heads, we get outside of our petty self-centered concerns, and we really care about the well-being of others. It's a beautiful way to live. That's why, of course, the devotees love Srila Prabhupada so much, because they could see in this person somebody who cared more about them than himself. When Srila Prabhupada was in New York, he had a little apartment in the storefront. And then he let some of the first devotees coming around, the boys, stay in the storefront and come up and use his shower. And we've all heard that he would wait in line to use the shower. What we didn't know, I didn't know until last month or earlier this year, that from Achyutananda Prabhu, who was one of those boys living in the storefront, they all used the same towel. One towel. They all line up to shower using the same towel. And that was how Prabhupada was living and giving of himself, just to help these people. All right, last question. Oh, yes.
Prabhu, I also heard it from a lot of devotees, especially when we live in ashram, especially Bhakti Academy. We have a lot of family mood, and this mood might get disturbed when we come to think that, okay, everyone is a devotee except the person who's staying with me. So how to not get this thing?
Yes, familiarity breeds contempt. This is a sign, really, when we feel that way, we again have to recognize this. The ashram is a temporary situation in life for almost everybody. So that's just an indication that you're probably not cut out to be a sannyasi. If you're feeling annoyed with other people in the ashram. Everybody does. It's like the purification, part of the purification that we go through. Instead of just absorbing ourselves in our cell phones all the time, with earphones in, like most people, we're actually trying to have relationships. We're trying to have exchanges with others, and we only really exist as individuals when we're having relationships with others, isn't it? We're not individuals just being by ourselves. We're kind of just in limbo. When we're with other people, who we really are comes out, right? So it's not a fault. It's a natural thing. It's really our false ego getting chipped at a little bit. If we persist in spite of having those negative feelings, then we're learning the lesson. We have them, we can't do anything about them. We wish they weren't there, but they're there, but we just carry on anyway. We tolerate. Prabhupada would often get questions like this from his disciples. I can't work with this one. I can't work with this one. And Prabhupada would respond. He said, you have to tolerate them just as they are tolerating you. Okay, last question.
What are your requirements for first and second initiation? How can I get initiated by you?
Well, it's $50,000.
What if they are brahmachari?
Lower rates may be available on our website. No, I really am much more enthused about helping other devotees become initiating gurus locally, because it should be a local thing. And there are inevitable questions that arise that are best exchanged on a person-to-person basis. And I don't live in Toronto. I'm not going to be in Toronto often. So in general, it's good to have somebody local if possible. But requirements are the same. Prabhupada set them for devotees to be initiated. 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles. Used to be 6 months, now it's a year. So that's a requirement for first initiation. And then subsequent to that, at least a year of steadiness in that position and a Bhakti Shastri degree. Those are minimum requirements for second initiation. And then letters of recommendation from people who know you. So those are the standard requirements for anyone to be initiated. You know, it's important to understand that initiation is a formality, and it doesn't really mark the beginning of our spiritual life. Our spiritual life begins when we accept Prabhupada as our primary Siksha Guru. We take his books as our source of knowledge. And the initiation is more of a connection, a formal connection with Srila Prabhupada and the disciplic succession. It prepares one to be a guru in the future and have one's own disciples. You know, so that's it doesn't like Radhanath Maharaj likes to say in initiations. Don't expect tomorrow you're going to wake up and be a miraculously different person. You know, after getting initiated, you're still going to be the same set of worries and arthas and problems. It's just that now you're formally connected, and the process of your becoming a spiritual guide has now begun. Okay. All right. Yes, Prabhu.
I had not a follow-up question, but a question of my own. If we have time, I can ask.
If anyone needs to go, please feel free. We finished our hour. We did all the questions. We did our hour. Okay.
I was living outside before doing the birthday getting everyone would have, and I was doing everything. I was working, paying my bills, and I had friends. I was enjoying life at the fullest, and I also had problems, financially or everything in general problems. But when I moved into Bhakti Academy, there was a sense of fulfillment, and enlightening and living experience. Obviously, it comes from devotional service, association of devotees, and those problems still exist. But there is fulfillment in the heart. Like, what is that? I am not able to explain that thing.
Yeah, it's because we're serving Krishna. Before we were not serving Krishna, we were serving Maya. And what was the goal of your life in those days before your Krishna consciousness? If somebody asked you, what is your goal? How would you answer?
Right now?
No, before.
Before it was, to get a job, get settled in life, take care of family, things like that.
We're always promised, if we do these things, then we'll have that fulfillment. You know, but then we get the job, it's still, okay, well, now you need to get the family. Okay, now I got the family. Now, no, a little bit more. Now when you retire, you'll be happy. That's the illusory energy. We can't be happy until we're connected with Krishna. This is the point. And we can do all those things in connection to Krishna. So it's not, as I said, this phrase, zero-sum game? Zero-sum game means it's all or nothing. You either win or you lose. That's it. There's no middle ground. But no, that's not true. In Krishna consciousness, if we put Krishna in the center, everything else is still accessible. It's just refined family life, refined friends, refined hobbies, right? Refined in the sense that they're connected with the Supreme. Okay. Yeah, that's experience of fulfillment, Jay, is something I experienced when I moved in the ashram also at 18. And it was such a transformative experience to me that I never forgot it. It just, it never occurred to me there could be anything better in life. And I've had a very rich and full life with family and career and all kinds of things, experiences. Everything I could have possibly wanted, I've gotten to do while keeping my Krishna consciousness as my focus. So that's why the ashram is a great benediction, because it allows people to have that awakening and then carry it with them for life. All right. Okay, so we'll call it a session. See you next year. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Radha Gopinath. Hari Bol. Is that helpful?